I want you to experience a loving, healthy relationship. But I acknowledge or I understand that that is easier said than done for a lot of people, unfortunately. And I believe one of the reasons why it has been so difficult to achieve is because we do not understand how to properly vet individuals. All right. When I say vet, how to evaluate, how to understand who we are dealing with, and if we actually align or fit together with this person. All right. And one of the ways that we accomplish doing that is by asking the right questions. And I'm always having women ask me, what should I ask? Or is this okay to ask? And all these different things. And so I've done videos on this before, but I have additional questions to provide you that I believe will give you some really good answers and understanding as to if this is a guy that you can actually move forward with. Okay. And I want to say this before I get into these questions. I really want to encourage you to not be afraid to ask any of the questions I present to you on this list or have presented to you in previous videos, because I know that so many women are holding back, right? Out of fear and concern of asking certain questions. Maybe they don't want to rock the boat. Maybe they don't want to come across a certain kind of way, whatever the case may be. But in doing that, you're just shooting yourself in the foot and you're making it harder for you to see more quickly if this is a guy that you can actually make something work with, okay? So with that said, let's get into some of these questions. And one of the first questions to ask a man before you start dating him, before you get in a relationship with him, is what is his love language? Now, some of you may be familiar with the book, The Five Love Languages. Some of you are not. We're not going to get into the whole breakdown of it. So we're going to make this simpler. Even if this man or you never heard of the love languages, the question is still, how do you like to be loved? Now, the love languages really speaks to how one gives and receives love, but I want you to focus on how they like to receive love. Because here's something a lot of people do not consider. When we understand that relationship love is about giving and pouring into each other, then we have to be able to understand if this is someone we can pour into. And too many people are more fixated on, can I receive from them what I want, but not really considering, can I give them what they're looking for? So by asking a man what his love language or how he likes to be loved, one, let me just say, for a lot of guys, they don't get asked that question, okay? They don't get asked like, what's important to you? What do you like? What do you enjoy? In that way that a woman's willing to actually embrace those things. So one, I think there's going to be a lot of guys who would just be, if he's genuine and serious about dating you, he's going to be happy to answer that question. But again, the key important thing here is for you to be listening, and it's hitting my spirit, so I have to say this. So the key is to listen. But you have to make sure that when you are in the dating phase, you got to be mindful of how you react to how he answers certain questions. All right? Because all you're going to do if you react poorly is make it harder for you to receive more information from this man. So let's just use an example. Let's say you ask a man, what's your love language? How you like to be loved? And let's just say this man says, well, you know, I really love massages, and I think a woman who's going to be with me, she should be prepared and willing to give me massages every week. Massage my feet, my back, you name it, right? And your reaction is, oh, hell no, I ain't massaging your back, right? And here's the thing. Now, sometimes it can be done in a joking way and people can have a good laugh. But you got to be careful, because if you come across very negative or dismissive or attacking in any kind of way, well, then it makes him feel like, well, what's the point of me telling you what I want if that's how you're going to react to it, right? I might as well not bother. And so now he starts to shut down. And the crazy thing is, if what you're poorly reacting to isn't going to be enough for you to walk away from him, and you're going to continue on with him anyway, then you only made things worse. See, if he says something that you find so ridiculous that you're like, oh, there's no way, that's not going to work for me, we're going to have to end this. He says something outrageous, right? Okay, so be it, because your reaction, you being negative, dismissive, whatever, it is what it is. You guys aren't going to move forward anyway, so it's not really that big of a deal. But what I see happen so much is women argue, get negative again, or be difficult about what this man's saying he likes and wants, only to continue to date him anyway. And so again, now that situation lingers on, okay? It has a very negative impact on the whole dynamic. So you got to be willing to listen and yes, be honest with yourself about, okay, am I willing to do these things? And that's why I think it's also important. Don't just stay on the surface with it. With certain things, go deeper as much as possible. Get the details. One, because that's only going to make you a better partner to that man if you indeed are willing to embrace those things, because now you know exactly what he likes, how he likes it, right? There's no guessing game there. But also, again, sometimes it's the details that are the deal breakers. All right. It's when you get deeper into these discussions that you find out, oh, this ain't going to work. So, something that's coming to mind right now, let's just say you meet a guy and he's like, yeah, and you ask him about intimacy and he says some things. Okay, you're cool. But you keep going and you find out, yeah, he's into threesomes. And he believes in, like, he wants to be able to eventually have a threesome. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say every guy's going to reveal that off the bat, but I'm just, again, the more questions you ask, the more you keep people talking, the more likely they are to expose themselves, okay, and whatever their truth is. So now you find that part out, and you know, oh, there's no way in hell you're going to do this. But that tells you there's a disconnect here. If that's the type of life he likes to live, and you know you're completely against that, we don't need to try to, play around with this. It's like, it is what it is. We're just not on the same page. So all that to say, ask the love language, ask how he likes to receive love, and really ask yourself, am I willing and able and can sustain giving him those things he desires? All right, so another great question to ask a man before you get into a relationship with him is, what are his priorities? All right. So I feel the need to highlight one of the issues you hear a lot about is dating men who don't have their stuff together yet, dating men who are still trying to build themselves up and things of that nature. Now, let me make clear, I do not support the mentality of building a man, a woman building a man, trying to carry him on her back and get him to a better place. I don't co-sign it. However, where I am more open to it and think it's okay is when it's not really about carrying, right? It's simply about supporting or complementing. So what that means is this is a man who already has his own drive, his own ambition. He has a vision. He may need some help with tweaking it, right? But he has some kind of a vision. He has things that he wants to accomplish. You're not having to put that into him. He just may need support, love, encouragement on the side. That to me is cool if you can handle that. All right. But you don't want to overextend yourself in a way that essentially you become this man's mother. He is your child and you're doing everything for him. Because then even if he was trying to do some things, you will stunt his growth by making it too easy for him. And unfortunately, human nature for a lot of people, for a lot of men, is that they're going to do what they have to do to get what they have to get. So if they're already getting you, they're already getting all the benefits of you in a relationship. There's a lot of men who the work stops there. So you don't want to be the one doing it for them. But anyways, if they have that character, that drive, they have their priorities in order, okay, cool. But you've got to be willing, or you got to be willing to dig into what his mindset is. And again, be careful not to project the potential you see in him. Be mindful not to project what you are fantasizing things can be, all right? Because women have a bad tendency of doing that at times. And in doing that and getting so stuck on the fantasy and the potential, that woman is ignoring the reality of that man. And so when you ask a man what his priorities are, I'm going to tell you, there's going to be some men who won't even know how to answer that question, right? They could not tell you what their priorities are. They have none. They're just drifting through life right now. right? They haven't figured it out. And if anything, even if you, because I'll say this, even if you are interested in that man, you see potential in him, and you believe that okay, he don't have his priorities in order, but he just needs a good woman to help him get some stuff straight, right? The thing is, why do you have to do that as his girlfriend? You can do that as a friend, all right? You don't have to cross certain lines to pour that kind of energy into a man that you believe in. And my thing is, if you make it clear to a man like that, that hey, if I'm going to give you some guidance, or I'm going to give you some love. And when I say love, love as in encouragement, not not love as in intimacy, because that's the line that really messes things up in these cases, right? Encouraging, supportive, but it's letting him know, hey, you got to get stable, or you got to get to a certain point before we can seriously be in a relationship together. Well, I tell you what, if that man is serious about trying to be with you, he's going to try to get his act together. That's all the motivation he needs if he has it in him to actually get things done. Because again, there are some men who just don't have it in them. There are some men who are literally going from letting their mother take care of them to looking for a new mother in you. All right. And I always say they're just looking for a new mother who will have sex with them. Now, is that all the men? Of course not. But there are a lot of men like that. And you will help see, or it will make it easier for you to see if he's that kind of man by asking him what his priorities are. All right. Now, again, as I mentioned previously, I'm going to mention it again. You got to be mindful of how you react to things. Because if he lays out priorities to you that you disagree with, or you even think are ridiculous, you cannot attack, dismiss, or make him feel stupid. Because if there is any desire to move things forward, you are planting a horrible seed. All right. But there's nothing wrong with discussing it. There's nothing wrong with questioning. Hey, you feel that your rap career, a lot of people want to be rappers. Your rap career is a priority, but you don't have a stable job or a savings account or whatever. Rather than saying, well, that's crazy, that's stupid. Have you ever considered that maybe it'd be best for you to build up a foundation first while you make music on the side, and then once things start to pick up, you can transit? See, you can have a discussion, you can give suggestions, right? But don't go at him the wrong way. There's no need for that. Again, especially if you're going to actually entertain this man any further. So either way, ask him what his priorities are. And this is not really a question I think you have to ask right off the bat, but I'm just going to bring it up right now anyway. That goes with priorities. I think it's good to ask him what he feels the order of priority is in marriage. And hopefully, we'll get into that a little bit later. If he even has, hopefully, he's a guy. If you want marriage, he's a guy who wants marriage too. Understand, okay, does he see it as the way that God laid it out? Like spouse, why am I forgetting what it is? Spouse, kids, work, whatever. Either way, it's understanding his family structure of how the priorities go in a family, okay? And seeing like where does he place partner versus family, friends, work, things of that nature, so that you understand. Now, I'll also say this before I move on to the next point. I do think, this is just my opinion that I want to share with you. A man should always prioritize his purpose over his partner. All right. His purpose has to be number one. And I believe purpose goes with God. So that's, to me, they're hand in hand. If he's following God, he's following purpose. That's supposed to be number one. And so if you hear, sometimes I think women get frustrated when they're talking to a man, dating a man who is maybe in the grind season of his purpose. He's pursuing things, and right now he's not that available. And he's being honest about that. That's not something you should be upset about. Now, that doesn't mean that's something that you have to accept as in be with him during this season. Maybe this is the season of friendship that y'all should have until he gets to a more stable place, or a place that he can have more time for a relationship. But it's not something to take as an insult to yourself, or that he doesn't care about you or a relationship. No, that's important to a man. That defines the man. So he has to make that the priority. So I just wanted to mention that, but let's keep this thing going. All right. So let's keep this thing going. And another great question to ask a man before you get into a relationship with him, excuse me, is what are his views on social media etiquette? Okay. So I'm going to use the word unfortunately. Unfortunately, we live in a world where we have to now deal with the impact of social media on relationships. And it can be a point of contention for a lot of couples. All right. And a lot of times it creates conflict because there has not been clear discussions on it. There's been a lot of assumptions. A lot of people thinking, well, why would you like someone's picture if you're in a relationship? But not everyone sees it that way, right? Now, I think there are some things I think everyone can agree with, like blatant flirting in the DMs. I don't know if there's anyone's going to say, no, that should be okay. It shouldn't be a big deal. However, we still don't need to assume anything in this world that we live in. We have to talk about it. But again, it's not even just about, because I think a lot of women, they hear this and they automatically go to how he operates on social media, which that's definitely part of the discussion. But we need to understand how he views how you should operate as well, because that can be a problem. For example, I have seen couples where man meets a woman, they're dating, whatever, and she posts an image on social media that to her wasn't a big deal. It was her at a beach. It wasn't that serious. It's just beach clothes. You know, it's not super provocative. Yeah, there's some skin. But that man was not feeling it. He was not happy about it at all. And to him, it was a problem. It was like, why would you post that? You didn't even ask me about posting. And she's like, I didn't know I need to ask you to post this. Like, and it created an argument. So you don't know how this man operates and how he views things. And again, it doesn't mean whatever he says, you have to do it his way. It means let's have a discussion early on so we get on the same page. And if we find out that there's certain, let's say, restrictions that the other is requiring of us that we don't like, then we kill it. Because if, for example, let's just say, and again, different people, different folks, different strokes for different folks. You may have some people out there who believe in sharing passwords on social media, both men and women. But you also have men and women who think that's too much. Why we have to share passwords? Why can't we just trust each other, right? This is why we got to talk about it. And we got to understand, because he may require things of you that you're like, oh no, I can't do this. And or you may require things of him that he feels like this is stupid, this is silly. And I do want to say, you know, because people will ask me, well, am I wrong for not wanting him to like anybody's picture? And I always say, listen, it's not about right or wrong. It's about how you feel. It's about what you are genuinely comfortable with. Because even if I said to you, you are tripping, you are wrong for having an issue with your man simply liking another woman's photo, that's not going to change the fact that when you see it, it's going to make you extremely uncomfortable. It's not going to change the fact that for some of you, it will piss you off. It's not going to change the fact that for some of you, it will make you question if he's cheating. That's your reality. We have to accept that. Now, granted, we have to always be open to exploring when we are projecting insecurities or negativity onto people due to things we haven't healed from. Okay? However, I do believe from my discussions with so many different people in this world, people are just wired differently. All right? There are some men who are just very strict with certain things. There are some men like me, myself, I'm very free-spirited. I ain't worried about all that stuff. Like I'm not, again, I always say, I'm not trying to police no woman. I'm not like, and that doesn't make the man who does have all these restrictions necessarily wrong, depending on what his intentions are, right? But it's just how we're just wired differently. So have that discussion, find out how he feels about things, leave no stone unturned so that there's nothing that anyone can say, well, you never told me that was going to be a problem. No, let's get it all out the way early, and then we can figure out if we want to move forward or not. All right. So Another wonderful question to ask a man before you get into a relationship with him is, what does he feel makes a good woman? All right. So we've talked about previously, how he wants to be loved and things of that nature. But I think it's also important to find out how he views a good woman. Because again, everybody has different perceptions and beliefs for various reasons. All right. And some of the things that he may view as what makes a woman good might be things that are completely not okay with you, okay? For example, let's just say you ask him what makes a good woman. And he says, a woman who listens to what I say, doesn't question me, and just does what she's told. Okay? Now listen, there are gonna be some women out there who might be like, all right, cool. I like you. I think you know what you're doing. I'll listen. I ain't gonna take any issue with that. That's fine with them. Some of you, when I probably even said it, was like, hell no. Ain't no way, not gonna happen. Okay? Now, let me be clear. Do I think there is some level of truth to that requirement? Yes, I said level, so don't attack me. Um, in the sense that if we're gonna get together and be married one day, we have to be able to be on one accord. We cannot have this going back and forth. We have to have a structure of leadership in this relationship. And I do believe that somebody has to have the final say so. Now, there's a whole different video I have to make on why it is in the best interest of the woman. I want to be clear with this. This is in the best interest of the woman to let that man lead. Okay? For the man and the woman, it's in their best interest. And I know there's a lot of people out there who will be like, oh, but why can't we both lead? Why does a man have to lead me? Again, let me just give this one little tidbit. Allowing him to lead is removing the stress and burden off of you. I don't think people really process the fact that leadership, being the main decision maker or the head decision maker, because I say it that way because you still want to talk to your partner, consider their feelings, consider their input, but someone's got to be the one to make the final decision. That can be very stressful. It's not even just the stress of making the decision, it's the stress of the aftermath of the decision. There's a lot that goes into it. It's the carrying the weight of the decision, right? All these things can be very stressful to the woman. Now, if you're a woman who genuinely thrives off of that, loves that, you need that in your life, all right, cool, so be it, right? Then maybe you're an exception to the rule. But I do believe that for most, I can hear some of y'all, well, how do we know he can make the right decisions? Well, then that's a question of why are you with that man, not why are we putting a man in that position? You get what I'm saying? Like, the principle of it is not the problem. The application in that situation, because you're with a guy that you don't trust to be able to handle leadership, that's the issue in the discussion that needs to be had. But in general, it removes burden off the woman. And it allows you to thrive in other areas. It shouldn't be viewed as this, well, it's saying you're not capable or it's taking away your voice. Well, at least that's not the way that I'm encouraging it or trying to present it to you. I understand that's how some will weaponize it. But again, the issue is not the true principle of it. It's their intent to weaponize it for negative reasons. Okay. But the bottom line is, yes, I believe it is in the best interest of both. So, getting back to the topic at hand, which is what's his view or how he views a good woman. At the end of the day, if his perception does not align with yours, so be it. But have discussions. And I think be open to asking more about, okay, well, if he says something like, well, I think a woman should, listen to her man, boom, 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 boom. Ask him why. Or, all right, how does that look to you? Or, okay, if I'm listening, do I still get a say so? Or do we still get to sit down and discuss it? Rather than just having a negative reaction to things, let's dig deeper and understand each other. And in trying to understand, for some people, it will bring harmony and allow them to resolve that concern. For others, it will show a bigger disconnect between you two, and it's like, all right, we don't need to move forward. All right, so here's another one, and I got a bonus after this. Another great question to ask a man before you get into a relationship with him is, what are his views on God and spirituality? Okay, so of course, if you're not a believer yourself, then this is probably not relevant to you, right? Well, it will still be relevant, because even if you don't believe, well, you need to know what that man believes, and again, how that might now conflict in your relationship. But most people who are watching this are probably believers to some extent, of some spiritual belief. And I'm seeing more and more women trying to look past this issue. All right. And trying to make things work when both parties are not of the same belief system. Now, I'm not going to say that no one has ever not made that work, right? However, making it work depends on how you look at what working equals out to. And so I believe that if you have two people and neither of them are very passionate about their belief system and they have different beliefs, then it's very likely they can just go on life living together, raising kids, even though they have separate beliefs. Like, some people have pulled it off or are currently pulling it off. However, the downfall to that is, if one of those individuals becomes passionate about their belief, there's a very good chance it's going to cause conflict. All right. But then also, if you are specifically a believer in God, right, believer in Christ, then that individual not having those same beliefs as you conflicts with some of the things we are called to do in that belief system. So God wants you to be with other like-minded believers. It's the whole being equally yoked, right? So if that's not there, that's already a conflict. And so it's important to talk and ask. Now, I'm going to be real with you. If you meet a man, you like him, everything's great, but right now he does not believe what you believe. Let's say he don't believe in God, right? Or he's at a crossroads with it. I'm not going to sit here and say this man can never get to a place where he does. I'm not saying he can't turn things around, because I have seen it tons of times through people that I'm cool with, through acquaintances, through situations that I've helped coach, through clients, all these things. It can happen, but you should not proceed under your own understanding and attempt to work around this. All right? You got to talk to God yourself and find out what he wants you to do. Because let's just say, all right, yeah, that man may turn that corner eventually, but God may tell you, okay, it's not time to move forward with him yet. Don't get in a relationship. Y'all can be cool. Maybe God knows 6 months from now, a year from now, whatever, this man's going to have a come to Jesus moment, and boom, you guys can be on the same page and everything's going to be great. But too many jump the gun and try to make it work regardless, on the hope that things will turn around later, and get burned for it. So you got to have those discussions, because the reality is that in today's world, there's a lot of people believing in a lot of different things. All right. Now, let me also say this before I move on to the next point. Because another issue I'm seeing is that, let's just say it's two people of the same belief. And for this example, let's just use two Christians. It can be Muslim, it can be whatever, but in this example, let's use two Christians. So what I'm seeing a lot happen, and this tends to happen more, I see with Christians, is that, all right, this man believes in God, but he don't move like you think he should be moving. He doesn't worship like you think he should be worshiping. Let's say he's not reading scripture daily. So to you, it's like, well, he's not serious, or he's not at the level he needs to be at. And it's like, pump your brakes. Pump your brakes. Because one, you got to understand, we do not all worship the same. We don't all have the same approach to it. And that can be very true when it comes to men and women. I don't want to get too deep into it, but like, there's a book I always mention. It's called Why Men Hate Going to Church. And one of the things it mentioned in there was like how you can see the difference between men and women when it comes to worship service. Like, women love the worship part of the service, whereas a lot of men don't. And they're more disconnected during that time. And this is very true. There's a lot of men who won't go during the worship time. They just want to hear a good word. They want to hear something that resonates with them, connects with them. That's it. So that small example of how it can be very different in how we go about things has to be understood. But also, you have to accept that you are not God, and you don't get to evaluate someone's worthiness or level. You have to go to God and ask Him. And if God says to you, no, this man ain't ready, cool, so be it. But if God says, no, this is right, all right, like you looking for the wrong things, but this is my guy, this is my guy for you, like proceed, then proceed. So just be careful with that, because I've seen a lot of women take it upon themselves to determine someone's spiritual level or whatever the case may be, and we're dead wrong and shot themselves in the foot. But anyways, let's just move on to another point. All right, so here's my bonus point. And this one, I probably should have mentioned in the very beginning, but either way, we're here now. Another great, extremely important question to ask a man before getting into a relationship with him. How long does he feel a man should need before he determines if he wants to marry someone? Okay? Hopefully I was clear with that. And here's why this is so big. There are so many. Matter of fact, I just saw a TikTok the other day where I think it was at a college, and they were asking people that question. They asked this one guy, and he was like 5, 7 years. Like he was like, you never know. And he even went. He said it could be 10 years. And then he mentioned how, and the woman who was asking was like, you don't think that's too long? And he's like, my parents were together for 15 years before they got married. Now again, I know that some of y'all like, hell no. And when I heard it, I was like, man, you are tripping. 15 years? What? 10 years? No. But this is so important because, again, if your desire is marriage, you need to find out what that man's mindset is when it comes to the time frame of enough time to come to a decision. Now, here's the reality. No matter what his time frame is, you need to have your own. And I would highly encourage you to stick to your own time frame, because a lot of women get themselves caught up in what I call dead-end relationships and situations dragging on way longer than they should because they did not have an internal deadline of, okay, this is enough. Either he wants to go there with me or he doesn't. All right. Now, of course, I understand that there are certain circumstances that could alter the timeline. So, for example, if an 18-year-old just graduating high school says, I need 5 years at that time, that's a lot more understandable because of the age. A grown person, to me, a grown adult saying, and when I say grown adult, I'm saying, let's say past 30. Let's just go with past 30 for this example. Past 30, you need more than 5 years? You need 5 years? Me, I don't agree with that. But again, it's not about what I agree with. It's not about what you think. It's about finding out what he thinks and then seeing if that works for you. And again, it's something that you can have a discussion about to understand why, because as the example I gave you, that kid was obviously influenced by what he saw his parents do. All right. And you can still say to a man, hey, listen, I hear you. You think 4 or 5, whatever years is the time you need. I'm working on a 2-year timeline, right? Or whatever it is. So he understands you're not playing that game with him. And if it reaches that point, you are prepared to walk away. No surprises. Don't act shocked when we get to that point and you're not willing to go to the next stage with me. So find out, ask that question. At the end of the day, ask all the questions you need to ask, because the more clarity you can gain, the more quickly you can determine if this is truly the man for you. Thank you for watching this video. I pray it was helpful to you. Be sure to watch this one over here on the 7 fastest ways to expose a man's intentions. You know, if a lot more people would date with intention, then we would have a lot less people getting played, having their time wasted, getting their heart broken,